Ari, welcome.
Thank you, Kim. How are you?
I'm okay. He looks peaceful too, and I need that right now. But
I feel peaceful.
oh, good. Okay. So, Ari, hold our hands through this. You are a neuroscientist from Harvard. I'm intimidated, but you are open and approachable. So, what message, why are you into that field? What attracted you to it?
So I'm not the traditional academic neuroscientist. This is my third now go at another career to combine and get to where I'm at today. It was combining master's in business, international business, sensory design at Parsons, and now neuroscience, behavioral neuroscience.
Okay, so Parsons is even cool. My God. So where do you live?
So I split my time between 3 countries, but now mostly in Lisbon, Portugal. Yeah.
Okay, we're going to be friends because my husband and I are retiring there. And so just get ready. All right, this is the beginning.
There's only living in Lisbon, so you may retire, but you're just going to continue
he's
to the next
I'll
level.
never retire. But we think we're going to go somewhere near Porto, which is not a bad drive, a train ride to Lisbon. So there we are.
Beautiful place, beautiful people, and the energy for what we do in terms of wellness and technology and sensory design. It's a great movement that's happening there. So I'm truly inspired to be there.
Fala português?
I falo portuñol.
Oh, portuñol, mi esposo también.
So this is the combination of Portuguese and Spanish,
Yep.
and they're so close. You'd think it'd be easy, and for me, it's been quite a challenge. So I speak in Spanish, they speak back to me in Portuguese, and we figure it out in between.
You figure it out. And my husband is from Cuba. You are from the Dominican Republic, right?
Dominicano.
Dominicano, baseball. It's wonderful. And I will tell you that, you know, the Latin community, I think, has been slower to grasp the wellness world. And I have been inspired by the leaders trying to open their arms to them and bring them in. Do you agree?
You know, we practice wellness in different ways.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I know of very few cultures that dance, smile, eat, and enjoy life throughout the generations as the Latin culture. I think for all of us, we're trying to learn from each other. And I think the beautiful thing about wellness is that it's not just physical, it's perceptual.
Mm-hmm.
And no matter where you go in the world, no matter what culture, every individual's view on wellness is different, and it can change every day.
Right, it can. And the theme I keep coming back to when I interview people is connection and joy and gratitude. Those are free, you know? I mean, there are barriers to entry to a lot of wellness experiences, but not to those. And just connecting with people, which, you know, we're able to do, and we're so happy to connect with you. But let's focus on your specialty. Ari, you sent some ideas, and we appreciate it so much. What are the senses to you?
So for most of us, we see the senses as these organs, like our eyes, our nose, etc., that allows us to interpret the world beyond what we can feel. And what's interesting is that we have these receptors all across our body.
Mm-hmm.
And our body receives about 11 million signals every second. And these receptors transform that information into valuable information in the brain. And then the brain tells us how to feel. So the senses is a system, a language, a code that only our species speaks in that specific way. And that's why we can share our experience in this room. That's why, you know, you exist and I exist because of the senses.
They make life in living color, don't they?
Color is a great way to put it because it is a subsense. And as you know from the talks here at Global Wellness, where we focused on My Cocoon and what we're doing at My Cocoon with color, you know, this is what it's all about. It's how do we leverage the invisible and make it visible. And with the senses, there's this code that we feel we can use to leverage how people feel during those difficult moments, shift their perception.
Okay, we need to go into My Cocoon. I've been in the recording room, so I did not hear your presentation, but I will listen to it when I get home on the recorded section of the summit. But I will tell you that I've worked in the spa industry a very long time, and I worked with a beautiful spa in St. George, Utah. And I always said that a husband-wife team, the wife was like the Georgia O'Keeffe of the spa world, and she was really into healing modalities and nature and tinctures from, you know, the land. But what she did was this subtle color therapy. Every day you're at that spa, it's usually 7 days, was a different color theme, but they didn't tell you. They just did it. So the light bulbs would change, the water would change, the crystals in the bath, the natural salts would change. And I started to read about it. I said to her, why aren't you telling people you're doing this? She said, that's not how we communicate this. And, yellow was like the light is opening, our path is bright, broadening. And the last day was orange because it was celebrate and dance. So take me down that. What else?
Well, interesting connection because my cocoon was started by a husband-wife team. So there must be some magic there when couples get together and talk about color. My cocoon was founded by Valerie Corsias and Dominique Kelly, who are my partners at my cocoon. And they started this over 2 decades ago. They are the founders of the Pantone consumer brand.
Oh, my God.
And they evolved how they saw color. They're like, hey, guys, color is much more than a trend. It's energy. We're seeing people connect. We're seeing people sleep better. We're seeing people change certain types of behaviors just by going into some kind of color bath. Ultimately, we use color in a personalized way. So while many of us think that, is this color calming? We each have colors that are calming to us.
Thank you for saying that. Thank you for saying that. Our picture went down, girls, because we need his beautiful face up there. Do you see? All right, good. This is for our YouTube audience because, if you're just listening audio, you can't see how beautiful Ari is. But if you go over to YouTube, you will. Pantone even has a color of the year each year, right?
Correct.
But my bedroom is so bright compared to what other people would do, but it's my joy. One of the colors is Istanbul. It's like a cinnamon orange. And because I love Istanbul, it just makes me happy. And it's like tropical, it's a little Cuba meets Tahiti. And, a lot of people wouldn't pick that for a bedroom, but I love hearing you say it's individual.
It is just like the senses and also just like well-being. It's perceptual. And that's why we think that when we talk about well-being and when we address how to create new solutions to evolve our approach to well-being, in particular in the spa industry, where right now we have a great challenge as to how do we attract, how do we grow, how do we evolve? And one of the ways that we can do that is by integrating personalized technology that allows spas to achieve chromotherapy. And there's my cocoon. My cocoon, started creating lighted furniture, experimental things, all the way to inflatables, which we, light up and use for experiences and activities. But then they spent about 10 years developing wellness lighting. Ooh. And this is non-flicker lighting that has won Best Wellness Lighting of the Year several times. It doesn't create certain side effect harms that traditional lighting can. But ultimately, the technology allows you to discover your color mood. So together with Pierre van Obergen, who is one of the world's leading chromotherapists, we developed this test. And it's an intuitive color-based test. No words, just tap the color. And a few taps later, you're going to see what color you are subconsciously drawn to.
Oh.
Suddenly, the light changes in that color. And you drive your experience versus your experience being driven by drives you.
So color is one of the senses that is so powerful that gives off vibrations. How else do you use the senses to promote well-being?
So when you select that color, we also combine the translation of that color into sound. So every color has a complementary note, if you will. And when I look at the senses, think about it as all electromagnetic waves.
Yep.
Where one end is your vision, in other words, light, very, very fast. And on the tail end is scent, which is also in motion.
It
right?
is.
But very slow. So for us, the senses are this one thing. We just kind of categorize it based on the speed. Now, there's complementary elements to these things. And when we combine a color with its corresponding sound, and maybe even a corresponding scent, what we're able to achieve is something greater than the sum of its parts. And that's the magic of the senses. That's the magic of life. When you add sometimes like the people in this room, there's more than 4 people in this room, even though there's only 4 physical people sitting, because our energy amounts to something greater than us.
Good. I hope they're all enjoying the conversation. Tell me what you mean when you say well-being is both physical and perceptual. It's how you think you feel, or what?
Yeah, so think about the pillars that global wellness has been, the pioneer in identifying and further breaking down what wellness means. If you look down those pillars, some of them have physical context. In other words, you physically feel it. Others, like mental wellness, are perceptual.
Yeah.
These are psychological archetypes that we're building in our mind. And the senses are the same. We physically feel it. But we also, our brain will use other sensory information from the past to kind of fill in the gaps. And that's why we often say colloquially, perception is everything.
Yeah. Perception is reality,
Yeah.
what they say. Yeah. We're in PR, my partner, Darlene, and I, who are here. So we know all about that.
So we're using combinations of sensory stimuli that we know people respond well to. How do we know? Because we're developing sensory profiles. We're asking you, what's your arousal type? We're asking you, what are some sensory preferences?
Wait a minute. What would an arousal type be?
So some people are hyper or hypo in terms of arousal. And a lot of people, for example, in the neurodiverse communities, they're very sensitive to things like sound.
Yeah.
And if we know these things ahead of time, we can do a better job at delivering an experience that empowers them. I think one of the experiences that all of your listeners, including everyone in this room, including everyone in the conference, can attest to is that we're living in this hyper-accelerated world where our mind can't keep up. We are on constant sensory overload. So how do we reset that? And that's where we've developed this concept of sensory resets, where we use specific sensory stimuli to shift, to help you get out of your front brain, which is where your frontal cortex, which is where you're stressing and overanalyzing
Your
and overthinking.
to-do list, yeah.
And the beautiful thing about the senses is that they touch all different parts of your brain. So, for example, when you embrace a color bath and you go into a space such as my cocoon, and go into this incredible, immersive, multisensory, but color-anchored experience, your brain is going, why is this room magenta? Is this a room? Magenta? What is it reminding me of? Now, suddenly, Kim, when you start thinking that way, whatever you were thinking before, the attention's left that.
Good.
We're starting to see neurons and neural activity in other parts of the brain. And it's as simple as that. I truly believe that the future of wellness is perceptual. So this is just what I feel is the beginning of perception medicine.
Aww.
How do we use wavelengths, frequencies, et cetera, which we've talked about for millennia, but now we can validate these things.
How exciting. One of our episodes, we interviewed the people that Jay Balvin, the reggaeton guy, who is such a dolly doll from what I can tell. He suffers from anxiety and depression. So he put his money behind an app for mental wellness, and mostly for the Latin community. But, they want to channel that negative energy into positive, they call it creative wellness. But it just hit me that maybe you guys have to meet, because what about adding color and sound to that while it's happening? Vibrations. It would, could only help, I would think. So the evolution of sensory design, you have designed for, let me name drop, Nissan, Marriott International, NASA, Amazon, and one of our favorite Six Senses resorts. Can we just use a couple examples of what you've done for those companies so we can crystallize it in our heads?
Of course. So with My Cocoon, we've created some incredible experiences using color, including synesthetic wine experience at Six Senses Douro Valley.
What's synesthetic?
So synesthesia refers to this condition where your senses are kind of crossed. And you've probably heard people who can smell color or who can taste sound. And I'm fascinated by that condition. It inspires a lot of my work. And together with an experiment from Charles Spence, director of neuroscience at Oxford, we created this wine tasting experience. So it was one single type of wine, 2 glasses, and all we did was change the color settings in the room. Everything else stayed the same.
Come on.
We had our Six Senses guest rate how they felt about each glass they had. They didn't have a clue. It was from one bottle. And the results were interesting because they thought they were completely 2 different wines
Oh my God.
from flavor profile. All we did was change the color. So these are
room.
In the room. That's it. And what's crazy is that some of the management that was there who knew what we were doing, they couldn't believe it. They were the ones who even gave us the bottle. So ultimately, these are just small examples to show how susceptible our brain is to environmental information like color or like temperature. And ultimately, we have this incredible opportunity to showcase people, hey, it's that easy even to shift your flavor perception. So that's one example. Recently at Six Senses Kaplankaya, together with the Harvest team and the Harvest series, we created color sensory dinners where we worked with the chefs, creating different ways to experience food and tease your senses with what you think it's going to be and what it actually is. And that gap is what shows us that there is so much space for us to grow and expand. And when we do these kinds of activities, what truly happens is that people's consciousness or their awareness of what is reality, it expands just a little bit more.
Well, who doesn't want that? Anyway, I've been to Doral Valley, the Six Senses. It was magical. And I mean, the sensory overload there and the positive energy from the staff and the great wine. So when you add color to that, I can only imagine. What did you do for Nissan?
So for Nissan, this was through my other company, Origami, my research company. And we're very happy to have collaborated with Edelman, the agency, and mega wellness composer Tom Middleton, who's one of the top composers on Calm. And basically, we created a soundscape for Nissan electric vehicles.
Ooh.
And you may wonder, okay, why does Nissan electric vehicles need a soundscape? Well, when they launched their electric vehicle fleet, several parents were complaining that their kids weren't falling asleep in the car. And this was a problem. And sales dropped because of that.
Oh, because you couldn't hear the engine.
There you go.
Oh.
So we had to go in, measure some of these vibrational frequencies that are emitted by the combustion engine, recreate that with the sounds of the car, which was Tom's genius.
Ew.
And we created the first soundtrack of a car on Spotify that has a function. It's a sound to help your kids fall asleep.
I love that.
Now, this is noise that you and I can't hear, right? And we say noise because it's specific frequency. This one specifically was around pink noise, so lower than white noise. And children who have, under the age of 2, they have a different development in their ear. It's not fully developed yet.
Mm-hmm.
So we use these frequencies to benefit them and not harm the driver. And thus far, it's been an incredible success. We launched this a few years back, won multiple awards, including one of the first Wellness for Automotive awards.
How long did that take to develop, Ari?
About 2 years.
Oh, it did?
Yeah.
Well,
and it was mostly the conversations and proving. And again, part of our goal, our main goal is to highlight wellness is in every sector. Wellness is a human ideal. And wherever humans are, we need to bring wellness as the common denominator.
Wellness is a human ideal. Can someone write that down? Okay. Is there a color that people associate the most with wellness? Can I guess?
Sure.
I'll say blue. What do you say?
Let me ask you this. What color do you associate with calmness?
Calm?
Yeah.
Calm. Am I ever calm? I would say like a white or a blue. That's what I would say.
So that's the thing. All of us have different associations with colors. And while there are cultural fixations with colors that are imprinted by culture in different parts of the world, ultimately color, again, is personal and perceptual. So our brain uses color to identify a situation before we identify what shape it is, how far it is. And our brain goes searching, okay, what do I know about magenta?
Really?
Yeah. And that's why color is difficult to be prescriptive. Yes, there are some physiological expressions of color that we have biologically, but those are very minor. Beyond that, color is a psychological construct.
Can I argue with you, Ari?
Please.
Okay. So I feel like I honor design of all kinds. And so I honor the design of the earth and the blue of the ocean that is, to me, universally calming, and the green of the landscape when everything is as it should be. are pervasive. So why would a designer have used those two colors? Pretend you believe there was a designer of that. Why do you think?
Well, I think it's all about context. And that's where the other sensory cues help. So if we're able to design congruent cues, congruency meaning that contextually they come together, they make sense, that's something different. Now, part of what we use at My Cocoon is we're inspired by the ecological valence theory. It's basically a fancy ecological valence theory. Oh. It's a fancy way of saying biophilia in terms of color.
Okay.
So we are inspired by the colors of nature and by the properties these colors have in nature. So as you said with the ocean example, for example, some people, yes, may find that blue very calming. But if you live in rough waters, I don't know if you'll particularly find blue calming.
I'd be afraid, yeah. I'm afraid of blue. Rough blue scares me, yes.
So there you go. I think ultimately, to answer your question, there isn't any one color that promotes calmness more than another, and it's individual. So part of our goal at My Cocoon was to flip the question. Instead of, is blue calming to you? It's what color is calming to you, and deliver that color to you.
Darlene, what color is calming to you? Blue. See? How about you, Tova? Blue? Okay. Because I like brown too. I mean, dirt makes me feel good, and sand, those colors.
For me, I like magenta.
Oh my God, who are you? That is so electric. That is so electric. Okay, so tell me, what is brainbow besides a really cool word to say? Brainbow.
Well, brainbow, first of all, is a type of technology that we use in fMRIs.
fMRI.
So when we are doing frequency magnetic imaging and resonance of the brain, we use a specific chemical called brainbow, which colors the brain, if you will, and helps us understand the pathways. Now, that's just the actual origin of the word. We were inspired by that process and created an app, a software through My Cocoon called Brainbow, which is available on Apple and Android. And this allows you to create your own color story and use color for meditation. Now, what's special about our app is that we're introducing this concept of sensory wellness. And instead of just being on your phone and just doing it on your phone, which you can now connect to TVs and bring that experience to an entire room. So imagine a guest at a hotel room changing the color of the room literally through their phone.
I mean, I need to do that. I'm looking at Brainbow right now. It's an app, you say?
Yes, correct.
Okay, I might need to get it. Okay, because when we travel, things happen. I've learned, there it is, Brainbow. I've learned through, interviewing people that circadian rhythms and light are just so controlling. It's subconscious. We don't even get it. You know how much it controls us. So color and light.
Well, think about it this way. We are beings of light. We are beings of light. We're light eaters, as James Turrell says.
Oh, I love that.
So as we consume light, we're transforming light into energy. And we this is a constant interaction we have with the world around us. And again, color plays a very specific role. Now, up to this point, we've always talked about color as a feature in light, as an aspect of light. But I think what we're evolving to understand is that color is the relationship between light and darkness. That's why in a full white room, you can't see color. That's why in a full black room, you can't see color.
How are we light eaters?
Well, we consume energy through light. We consume thoughts and information through light.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And every cell in your body, all 6.4 trillion of them, are photosensitive.
Wow.
Yeah. So that circadian science that you talk about isn't just in the brain. Each cell in your body also has circadian reference as well.
The mind races with questions. I mean, I married later in life, and I was so surprised that my husband has to sleep in a cave, my Cuban. It has to be pitch black or he can't sleep. What does that mean? Does that mean we need to turn off our light eating to recover? And what does it mean?
Ultimately, we are over-consuming light. And you may have to blame from the beginning of electricity, right? Where we stopped really certain types of sleeping patterns and changed.
Oh.
Now, we're doing this constantly. And, I'm not afraid of change. We're evolving. Our way of life is evolving. What we need to understand is how to evolve in a healthy way.
I think that's what we're talking about. So you want me to share with our listeners how the pandemic changed the view on sensory design. Well, would you say we were shut in and now we want to open up, or what?
I think for multiple reasons, mental health and wellness are no longer these taboo words.
Mm-hmm.
They're no longer these things that we have to explain and explain and explain. And since the pandemic, what we've seen are different organizations, from hotels to hospitals to workplace, just be open to new alternative solutions. Ultimately, if we think about it, we have the best medicine we've ever had in humanity today. We have some of the best medical treatment today. People are living longer than before, but that's not the case anymore. We're dying of diseases of despair.
Despair.
We're dying of loneliness. We're dying in this crisis of meaning, as my friend, author Jamie Wheal says. So in this existential crisis that we live in, COVID allowed us to see that this world that we're building isn't the right world. That's why so many people left their job. That's why a lot of people changed relationships.
Partners, yeah.
And partners, etc. So I think what the pandemic has done is open up our eyes to understand that there's far greater than what we think. And think about it. We were depressed. We were lonely. We were anxious. We were tired. Yet we were confined in the spaces we designed. We were confined with the people we choose to live with. So this was all in our setting, yet we were unhappy. And I think that's what this big reset has helped us do, is really reanalyze, what does it mean to be alive?
And what does it mean to fill a day? Because I think we don't put enough attention on that. Like, how do I fill my day? And the pandemic made me embrace, and many people embrace, nature more. And, that's full of color. No matter if it's, sandy or, brown tones or whatever, it's full of color and life and sound, as we heard yesterday at the program. So, yeah, I have to agree with you. I have so many more questions for you, but we're running out of time. Tell me what you mean when you say perception medicine.
So when we talk about, as we said earlier, perception's reality.
Mm-hmm.
And we know that not always perception's correct. And that's because we have a predictive brain. Our brain doesn't just process all those signals and gives us the significance or meaning of those signals right away. It interprets these signals and kind of makes up the rest. So when we feel pain, when we feel depressed, when we feel anxious, these are perceptual states. And through sensation, we can shift where your attention is. So sensation, perception, and attention are intricately linked. And when we're talking about diseases of despair, loneliness, and things like that, it really falls under this perceptual crisis of who we are, of why we do what we do, and how we do what we do. If we're able to shift how you look at this moment, you're able to shift how you see any moment. I want to give you an example. I talk about this example a lot. Let's say I'm late to this interview.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't late, by the way.
No, you weren't.
Let's say I was
getting
late.
Up, but no. Right.
But let's say I was late. Because we've all have that. We can all relate to being late. We get that rush. We start sweating, and just, oh my God, we're so late. Well, that's not just that moment of being late.
Mm-hmm.
Your brain is feeding you additional sensory information to make you feel a bit more stressed than you really should be, based on previous experiences of being late.
Yeah, which I've had a lot. But anyway, go ahead.
I do too, so no worries there. But the first step is acknowledging, hey, I'm late. And that's what we call awareness. And that's where we usually stop. And what I'm interested in is, how can we move the pendulum beyond awareness to actual behavioral change? So how do we do that? Okay, first of all, I'm late. I accept it. Second of all, I know that what I'm feeling right now isn't just the information from me being late now. It's from me being late from before.
Oh.
At that moment, you have the opportunity to self-regulate and release those other emotions that don't belong in that moment. Not release all of it, but just the ones that don't belong in that moment.
Yeah.
And suddenly you're back in control. Now, people do this, for example, when we work out. We put music to motivate us and to help us shift our perception of, oh my God, this hurts.
I can make it through, yeah.
Yeah. So this is something we've already been doing for a long time. It's just that I think now with the science and with the Western approach of validation, we're able now to create personalized settings that work for individuals. And ultimately, that will be the future of medicine, personalized shifts. And if this can be achieved through frequency, if this can be achieved through wavelengths, then yes, you better believe that in the future, we're going to be talking about, music as medicine.
We just did with Mindstream, but I also think you and I have talked a lot about color as medicine.
Correct.
And Ari, we're going to have you back because this is a lot to digest. You live here, you live in this brain field, this mind field of data and research applied to practical applications in everyday life. But let's digest it and let's see if we can give our listeners some tips. So if you had 3 things to wrap it up that you would say would enhance everyday life that are sensory, what tips would they be?
I think the first tip is to take a moment to process, to think about what are your likes and dislikes. And that way you can really better condition your environment to reflect those things. Now, this can be from lighting settings to type of music, but just acknowledging what are these things that bring you pleasant feelings. Second step is acknowledging which things bring you negative feelings so that you have an account for these things on a conscious level. Now, the senses, like most of our perception and sensation of life, it's all subconscious, mostly subconscious. So by bringing this to your awareness, you're already helping. Now, the third thing is really keeping balance. When you feel sensory overload, that means you no longer have attention span. That means you are no longer engaged. Listen to your body. Listen to your brain. It's okay to take a step back and reset. And at My Cocoon, that's why we created sensory resets, to give you this designated portion of time, 5 minutes, just to get out of your head. It's no longer about escaping. It's inscaping, if you will, right?
Aww.
We have to transform this energy and anxiety, stress, all these things that are crumbling us inside. This is energy we can transform into compassion, empathy, and action.
Okay, Ari, I am going to take your advice. And after this interview, I have to do a little decompressing. I'm going to go somewhere with pretty color and take some deep breaths, do some yoga stretches. So thank you for the lovely reminder. And we can't wait to talk to you again, Mr. Ari.
Thank you, Kim.